Meghan Markle seems like she is in the loony bin, and no disrespect to anybody who's ever been in the loony bin, those who might be watching us in the loony bin right now. But Meghan Markle, it's like she's doing arts and crafts, and they've given her those scissors they give to children where they don't have any sharp edges. They're like, let the girl do arts and crafts under supervision. Let her play in the fake kitchen with the camera crew. Nothing about this feels real to me.
Right now, Meghan Markle is reportedly under serious pressure as professional setbacks and staff exits continue to pile up, and sources claim the situation behind the scenes is far from calm. Reports suggest she has been placing a lot of that frustration on Prince Harry, with questions rising about what role he may have played in how things turned out. Nearly 25 staff members have reportedly stepped away since the move to the United States, and insiders say tensions have been building fast, creating a stressful environment around her team. According to those close to the situation, Harry has become the main target of that frustration, with claims that she holds him responsible for how things have unfolded. This outcome appears very different from what was originally expected when she entered royal life, and the transition into business success has not gone as smoothly as planned. The brand she hoped to elevate with influence and visibility has faced challenges, and that pressure is reportedly taking a toll. While everything may look calm on the surface, behind the scenes, insiders claim emotions are running high as she tries to regain control of the situation. Another major factor behind this situation is the reported cancellation of her Netflix series, With Love, Meghan. A holiday-themed version was released, but instead of the positive reaction that was expected, it reportedly faced strong criticism that quickly shifted the overall narrative around the show. Sources claim Netflix ultimately chose not to move forward with additional episodes, as the response leaned more negative than supportive. Instead of building momentum, the project appeared to stall.
Meghan is in full meltdown mode and blaming Prince Harry. This is over the loss of multiple staff members. I would just remind Ms. Markle that Harry did not suffer from a massive churn in staff before he met you,
adding even more pressure to an already tense situation. At the same time, instability within the Sussex team has continued to raise eyebrows. As mentioned earlier, more than 25 staff members have reportedly stepped away, with claims that the working environment required a high level of emotional endurance just to keep up. Key figures like former publicist Meredith Maines and Archewell Foundation director Jason Knopf have also moved on, and reports suggest the experience was demanding and mentally exhausting. On top of that, her lifestyle brand is said to be struggling, facing issues like unclear product listings, trademark complications, inventory confusion, and pricing that sits higher than competitors. Some items were reportedly removed from the site instead of being marked as sold out, leaving followers confused about what was actually happening behind the scenes. The brand was expected to make a strong entrance, but the rollout did not land the way many anticipated. Even public support appears to be shifting, with claims that certain celebrities are keeping their distance. Moments like public outings on significant days have also drawn attention, adding to the ongoing conversation and intensifying scrutiny around their public image. It's starting to look like she's caught in the middle of a storm with no clear way out, surrounded by pressure coming from every direction. Reports suggest that another major factor behind this situation is the growing perception that her celebrity status and social influence may be shifting. During an NBA game attended by Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, there were expectations that she might be seen alongside them, especially given past associations. However, that moment never happened, and some observers quickly read into it as a sign that her position in elite circles may not be as strong as before.
That it was totally cool to post, and then after it was posted, I think they realized it was Remembrance Day and they didn't want to be seen at a party even though it's already up, and then taken down. And then I think they realized, like, oh, this was so silly.
And they did baby to baby.
You just gotta laugh at like the situation sometimes and just like lighten it up and be, if everyone's taking it the wrong way, like lean in.
As conversations around her public image continue to grow, she reportedly made moves that sparked even more attention, including wearing a noticeable ring on her right hand. That small detail triggered a wave of speculation, with some seeing it as a statement of independence, while others viewed it as a response to ongoing rumors about her personal life. All of this constant attention and interpretation can create serious pressure, especially when expectations don't match reality. The royal title, once seen as a powerful advantage in building a brand, has not delivered the results that were anticipated. There may have been an expectation that the title alone would drive audiences to her projects and products, but the response has been more mixed than expected. With increasing media scrutiny and reports that former allies are becoming less visible, the tension continues to build, and sources claim much of that frustration is now being directed toward Harry, who is said to be feeling the impact the most. All of these situations combined are starting to paint a much bigger picture, and it's one that feels increasingly difficult to manage. When multiple areas of life begin to face pressure at the same time, it doesn't just stay contained in one space, it spreads. And that's exactly what insiders are claiming is happening right now. What makes this even more intense is the timing. None of these challenges are happening in isolation, they are all unfolding at once, creating a situation where every move is being watched, analyzed, and questioned. From business struggles to public perception shifts, everything seems to be stacking up.
And then it's just been chaos with trademarking issues, stock issues. Turns out that factories are producing it and Meghan's just white labeling everything, which means that they're sold by the same products are sold for other companies just under different labels, and Meghan's markup is 3 times more than everybody else's. It has been.
And that kind of pressure can quickly become overwhelming. There is also the reality of expectations versus outcomes, and that gap appears to be growing wider. When Meghan first stepped into this new phase of her life, there were strong assumptions about what could be achieved with global recognition, media attention, and access to influential circles. The belief seemed to be that those elements would naturally translate into long-term success across multiple ventures. But what is being seen now is that visibility alone does not guarantee results. Building a lasting brand requires consistency, clear messaging, and strong execution. And when any of those elements start to slip, the impact becomes visible very quickly. That's where much of the current criticism appears to be coming from. There are also questions around strategy. Some observers believe that too many directions were being pursued at the same time, without a focused core identity. From media projects to lifestyle branding to public appearances, the approach may have lacked a clear center, making it harder for audiences to connect in a meaningful way. And when audiences feel uncertain, they hesitate. That hesitation can show up in viewership numbers, product interest, and overall engagement. It doesn't necessarily mean rejection, but it does mean the connection is not as strong as it needs to be to sustain momentum. Another important factor being discussed is consistency in public messaging. When the image presented to the public does not fully align with what people believe they are seeing behind the scenes, it can create confusion. And confusion, more than anything, can weaken trust over time. That trust factor is critical, especially when building a brand that relies.
Well, Meghan Markle is allegedly very worried that Prince William could move to strip her of her Duchess of Sussex title when he becomes monarch, be next. You know, if I was Meghan, I'd be pretty worried too, because she's still happy to use the Duchess of Sussex title.
Absolutely.
I mean, she uses it on her website as she tries to sell her candles and her jams.
Heavily on personal identity. People are not just buying products or watching content, they are buying into a story, a lifestyle, and a personality. If that story starts to feel unclear or inconsistent, it becomes much harder to maintain strong support. At the same time, the environment around them has become more competitive than ever. The entertainment and lifestyle space is filled with individuals who are constantly adapting, refining their approach, and responding quickly to audience feedback. That level of competition means there is very little room for missteps. Even small issues like product confusion or unclear messaging can have a larger impact when compared to competitors who are delivering smooth and consistent experiences. It raises the stakes significantly, and it puts even more pressure on every decision being made. Then there is the role of public perception, which can shift rapidly and often without warning. One moment, the narrative may be supportive, and the next, it can turn critical based on a single event or detail. That unpredictability makes it extremely difficult to maintain control over the overall image. And once a narrative begins to form, it tends to build on itself. Each new development is viewed through that same lens, reinforcing the idea that something is not working the way it should. That cycle can be very hard to break once it starts gaining momentum. Insiders suggest that this constant cycle of attention and criticism is contributing heavily to the current tension. When every move is under a microscope, even small setbacks can feel much bigger than they actually are. It creates a sense that there is no room to step back and reset. There is also the personal side of all of this, which cannot be ignored. balancing public expectations, business responsibilities, and personal relationships at the same time is already challenging.
As are saying he's not really doing anything, glorified house husband. And, God bless Meghan. At least she's got her own solo ventures. Harry, it doesn't appear that he's got that. His last big solo venture was Spare. And, well, we know how that went down. Massive pay packet, but reputational.
But doing it under global attention adds an entirely different level of intensity. That's where the dynamic between Meghan and Harry becomes even more important. When external pressure increases, internal dynamics can also feel the strain. Reports suggest that this is where much of the frustration is being directed, as the situation continues to evolve. From one perspective, it may be about unmet expectations and how things have turned out compared to what was originally imagined. From another perspective, it may be about the difficulty of navigating such a complex transition from royal life to independent ventures. Either way, the result appears to be the same: a growing sense of tension that is becoming harder to manage. And when that tension builds over time, it can start to affect decision-making, communication, and overall direction. There are also discussions about whether a reset might be needed. Sometimes stepping back, reassessing priorities, and focusing on a smaller number of clear goals can help rebuild momentum. But making that kind of shift is not always easy, especially when there are multiple ongoing commitments. The challenge is not just about fixing one issue. It's about realigning an entire approach. That takes time, clarity, and a willingness to adapt, all while still being in the public eye. At the same time, it's important to recognize that public narratives are not permanent. They can change, sometimes quickly, if new developments begin to shift the conversation in a different direction. The question is whether those changes will come soon enough to ease the current pressure. Right now, what's being described is a moment of uncertainty, where multiple factors are colliding at once. Business challenges, public perception.
Where is it? I mean, blink twice if you need help. We don't know where American Riviera Orchard is. We are getting a glimpse of where it's going. Where is the Limonada podcast?
So, yes, there is a meltdown. Yes, she is blaming Prince Harry. That's why he is struggling so much. That's why the scenes at the basketball were so awkward. But I mean, the reality is here, she only has herself to blame, right?
Team changes and personal dynamics are all intersecting, creating a situation that feels unstable from the outside. And when everything is happening at once like this, it becomes much harder to separate what is temporary from what could have a longer-lasting impact. That's what makes this moment so critical. The next steps will likely determine how this entire situation evolves, whether it leads to a strong comeback, a major shift in direction, or continued challenges will depend on how these issues are addressed moving forward. At this point, everything seems to be reaching a critical moment where the direction forward is no longer clear, and every decision carries more weight than ever before. The pressure is not just coming from one area, it's coming from every side, and that kind of buildup can force a turning point, whether planned or not. What stands out the most is how quickly momentum can shift in situations like this. One moment, there is excitement, strong expectations, and a sense that everything is lining up perfectly. And the next, that momentum begins to slow, then stall, and eventually turn into something much harder to control. That shift is exactly what many observers believe is happening right now. There is also the issue of perception versus reality and how those two can drift apart over time. On the surface, everything may still appear polished, controlled, and carefully presented. But behind the scenes, reports suggest a very different atmosphere, one filled with stress, uncertainty, and constant adjustments. That contrast can be difficult to maintain for long. When people begin to notice small inconsistencies, whether it's in messaging, results, or overall direction, it raises questions. And once those questions start spreading,
That she announced in February. You look at Archwell, decrease in donations by $11 million. They lost their $20 million Spotify deal, rumors that Netflix won't renew their contract. So Harry and Meghan are in a very difficult position right now because their reputation is at stake. Are they too difficult to work with?
they tend to grow quickly, especially in an environment where public opinion can shift overnight. Another key part of this situation is how expectations were originally set. There was a belief that combining global recognition with new opportunities would naturally lead to strong results across multiple areas, including media, branding, and public influence. But expectations, no matter how strong, still need to be supported by execution. And execution is where things appear to have faced challenges, from project rollouts to brand positioning, there have been signs that the strategy may not have fully connected with audiences in the way it was intended to. That disconnect can create hesitation, and hesitation can slow everything down. It's also worth looking at how fast the environment itself moves. Trends change quickly, audience preferences evolve, and what works one year may not work the next. Staying relevant requires constant adaptation, and even small delays in adjusting can have noticeable consequences. At the same time, the level of scrutiny involved here is far beyond what most people experience. Every move, every appearance, every update becomes part of a larger conversation. That level of attention can amplify even minor setbacks, making them feel much bigger than they actually are. Then there's the question of support systems. When team members begin stepping away, whether for personal or professional reasons, it can create gaps that are not easy to fill. Each person plays a role in maintaining structure, direction, and consistency. And when those roles shift, it can affect the overall stability. Reports of multiple staff departures have added to that sense of instability, even if each departure has its own reason.
On the royal front, bad news for the Sussexes as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's chief of staff, a man called Josh Kettler, has reportedly quit after just 3 months in the role.
That is said to be the reason Meredith Maines, who was her publicist,
The overall pattern creates a narrative that something behind the scenes may not be fully settled. And once that narrative takes hold, it becomes part of the larger story. There is also the impact of public comparisons. In a space where others are consistently delivering strong results, launching successful projects, and maintaining clear messaging, any sign of struggle stands out more clearly. It creates a contrast that is hard to ignore. That contrast doesn't just affect perception, it can also influence confidence, both internally and externally. When results are not matching expectations, it can lead to second-guessing decisions, rethinking strategies, and questioning what direction to take next. And that brings everything back to the central challenge, finding a clear path forward. When multiple areas need attention at the same time, it becomes difficult to prioritize. Should the focus be on rebuilding the brand, adjusting public messaging, strengthening the team, or developing new projects? Trying to do everything at once can lead to even more pressure, while focusing on one area may leave others feeling unresolved. It's a balancing act that requires careful planning and strong leadership. There are also conversations around whether a shift in approach could help reset the situation. Sometimes stepping back, simplifying the strategy, and focusing on what resonates most with audiences can create a stronger foundation. But making that kind of shift requires time and a willingness to adapt. At the same time, the personal dynamic between Meghan and Harry continues to be part of the discussion. When external challenges increase, internal relationships can feel that pressure as well. Reports suggest that this is where much of the tension is currently being felt. It's not just about business or public image, it's about how those pressures affect communication, decision-making.
Lucidly put it. No, Meghan Markle's face when she realises George Hughes is not Barack Obama. And George posted, had the pleasure of meeting Meghan and Prince Harry yesterday beyond the titles, just genuinely kind, grounded people, grace in person, it's different. So, he said all the right things, but, they wanted the photo with Michelle and Barack, and they got the photo with this dude, George Hughes.
And overall direction within their partnership. That adds another layer to an already complex situation. Still, it's important to remember that situations like this are not fixed. They can evolve, improve, and even turn around completely, depending on the decisions made next. Public narratives can shift, opportunities can reappear, and new strategies can create different outcomes. The key question now is how those next steps will be handled, whether it involves refining the brand, rebuilding trust, or taking a completely new direction. The decisions made during this phase will likely shape what comes next. Right now, everything feels uncertain, but uncertainty also creates the possibility for change. The pressure is high, the attention is constant, and the situation continues to develop with each new update. And as all of this unfolds, one thing remains clear. This is a pivotal moment, one where the direction forward will define not just the next chapter, but the long-term trajectory of everything that follows. Some insiders are now pointing to a deeper issue behind everything that's been unfolding, and it centers around how Meghan reportedly views the impact of Harry's ongoing tensions with the royal family on their overall image. According to these claims, she believes that their public identity has become too closely tied to conflict, and that this association may be affecting how audiences connect with their projects and long-term goals. The argument being discussed is that when a public image leans heavily into ongoing disputes and personal struggles, it can start to shape how people perceive everything else connected to that image. In this case, some believe that the focus on family disagreements and personal challenges has overshadowed their business efforts.
Is that she wanted it on display, and I think it's because it's Valentine's and she was trying to send a message. You saw the way as soon as the cameras were on her, she had her double claw grip around Harry. She was nuzzling into him for the photographs because they're trying to prove that the divorce rumors are not true, Dan.
Making it harder for those ventures to stand on their own. That perception, whether fully accurate or not, can have a real impact. Audiences often respond not just to the product or content itself, but to the overall narrative surrounding it. If that narrative feels heavy or repetitive, it can create a sense of fatigue, and that fatigue can lead to reduced engagement over time. From this perspective, it's not just about what is being created, it's about the environment in which it is being received. And right now, that environment appears to be filled with constant discussion, analysis, and debate, which can make it harder for new projects to break through in a positive way. At the same time, this situation is not one-sided. Reports suggest that Harry is also dealing with a significant amount of pressure, and that pressure is coming from multiple directions at once. There is the public side, where every move is being closely watched, and then there is the personal side, where expectations and responsibilities continue to evolve. When those two sides collide, it can create a sense of uncertainty. Not knowing which direction to take or how to respond to ongoing challenges can make even simple decisions feel complicated. And when that uncertainty builds over time, it can start to affect confidence, both individually and as a team. Some observers believe that this is where much of the current tension is coming from. It's not just about one issue or one event. It's about the accumulation of multiple pressures that have been building for a while. Each new development adds another layer, making the situation feel more intense with every step. There is also the question of how to shift the narrative moving forward. If the current perception is creating challenges, then changing that perception becomes a priority. But shifting a public narrative is not easy, especially when it has already taken hold in a strong way. It often requires a clear and consistent approach, one that focuses on new directions, fresh messaging, and a stronger connection with audiences. That kind of shift does not happen overnight. It takes time, patience, and a willingness to adjust strategies along the way. Another layer to all of this is the expectation that comes with high visibility. When people are constantly in the public eye, there is often an assumption that everything should be handled perfectly. But in reality, managing multiple projects, public attention, and personal dynamics at the same time is incredibly complex. That complexity can lead to moments where things don't go as planned. And when those moments happen under intense scrutiny, they can appear much larger than they actually are. That's part of what makes this situation so challenging to navigate. There are also discussions about whether a different approach could help reduce some of this pressure. For example, focusing on fewer projects, building them more carefully, and allowing them to grow naturally over time could create a more stable foundation. But making that shift requires stepping back and reassessing priorities. At the same time, there is the personal dynamic between Meghan and Harry, which continues to be a central part of the conversation. When external pressures increase, it's natural for that stress to influence internal communication and decision-making. Reports suggest that this is where much of the frustration is currently being felt. It's not necessarily about assigning blame, but about how each person is processing the situation and what they believe needs to change moving forward. Different perspectives can sometimes lead to tension, especially when both sides are trying to manage the same challenges in different ways. And that's what makes this moment feel so important. It's not just about what has already happened, it's about what comes next. The decisions made now could shape how everything evolves in the future. There is still room for change and public. Narratives are never fixed. They can shift, sometimes quickly, when new developments begin to alter the conversation. The key is whether those changes are strong enough to redirect attention and rebuild momentum. For now, what is being described is a period of high pressure, where expectations, perception, and reality are all colliding at once. Business challenges, public image concerns, and personal dynamics are all intersecting, creating a situation that feels uncertain from the outside. And when everything is happening at the same time, it becomes much harder to separate what is temporary from what could have a longer-term impact. That uncertainty is what keeps the conversation going and what keeps attention focused on every new detail that emerges. As this continues to unfold, one thing is clear: This is a defining moment. The way these challenges are handled will likely determine the direction moving forward, whether that leads to a reset, a new strategy, or continued adjustments. Along the way, what are your thoughts on Meghan's reported situation and how everything is playing out right now? Drop your opinion in the comments below and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more updates. See you in the next video.